humans are wired to win. Gamification is the most powerful motivator.
We've been using gamification. We turned it on, not to the extent that you're talking about.
You can leverage blockchain to motivate, give them the now motivation for the then motivation.
We're getting 97% of the people to finish the course.
Yeah.
Just with a little tiny bit of what you're talking about.
Fitbit literally went from 0 to hero through gamification.
Using blockchain?
Yeah.
Now you got me intrigued.
Yeah.
Like, well, how do you do that?
This is the show for forward-thinking entrepreneurs who want to use blockchain and AI to disrupt and dominate. Now, Brian Ferry meets with the owner of Thrivalist and Food Storage Depot, Marcello Sergopoulos.
I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I actually, right before the show started, I always tell Joe I don't want to know anything about their business. I don't want to know anything about it because I want you to inspire me with it, right?
Okay.
But I cheated. I went and checked on what you're doing, and I think it's really interesting and cool. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
You bet. So we have a mission to help 10,000 families get prepared. Now, you just saw, Trump get into office and everything like that, and people think, oh man, things are smooth sailing from here on out. But you watch how dynamic and how controversial he is, right? We're just gearing up for some crazy things to happen over the next little while, and while good things happen at the same time. And so the thing about it is you're never, ever out of the woods. You always got to prepare for natural emergencies, man-caused emergencies, whatever it is, right? So that's what we do. We are the best when it comes to preparing people for emergencies. We've worked with large corporations. I can't name their names because you would know who they are, and I'm not supposed to. We worked with the Navy SEALs. We've worked with just a bunch of organizations over the last 14 years to get them prepared. But more importantly, we work with families, and I love working with families, tens of thousands of families all over the world, and hearing their stories where we're able to get them better prepared in 90 days or less, before an emergency happens, right? 90 days or less, then most people can get prepared in 10 to 15 years of trying to get prepared, right? Saving people thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and hours in preparedness. That's what we do.
So preparedness was part of my family growing up, right?
Okay.
Like my dad was a little bit psycho when it came to we got to be ready for anything and everything, right?
Yeah.
We had a freaking live potato cellar in my basement when I was a kid. But I actually don't know much about the preparedness business.
Yeah.
I will be honest. I have a lot of friends and family that are full-on preppers. I mean, my brother-in-law owns military vehicles just in case he's got to trek across the plains, But tell me about the business. Tell me about the products and the services, and how do you get me prepared?
You bet. First of all, there's more confusion in the market than you can imagine. Anytime you see a ton of advertising on an emergency preparedness product, you can almost guarantee that it's a cheap product and huge margins, or else they wouldn't be able to,
Advertise
like they are. So what happens is the ones that are the most popular, most of the companies out there that are the most popular are also some of the worst. But the best don't know how to market very well, so you just don't know who they are. And I do. I mean, I've been doing this long enough to know the players. So just to be able to find the companies that are actually telling the truth, the companies that are actually quality, that you're actually getting the right products, that's hard to find. And most people just don't know what they don't know, And
so talk to me about some of your products. Like what am I buying to get myself prepared?
First of all, education. If you know what to buy, we don't sell all the products in the world. A lot of times I'll have different products and I'll notice, man, there's somebody who's doing it better than me. So I tell people, go to that person. Know what I'm saying? Go to that company. Okay. And so that's the right way to do it. But in our company, we have one of the top emergency food lines. I don't know if I brought one of my cans. I think I got one right there. So Ready Harvest Foods. Yep. So you'll see that all over Amazon, right? We have the longest lasting emergency water in the world. Nobody has created a water that lasts longer than ours. Okay. All those canned waters and everything else just can't last. Ours does. Okay, we do everything right. We don't have pressure in the can pushing out, evaporating it over times. Just a whole bunch of things that people are doing wrong. We just do everything right. Okay. We have the largest emergency preparedness retail store in Utah. And as you know, Utah is the center for preparedness in the world. Yeah. And we have the largest retail store. Yeah. Okay, and we educate a bunch of people on how to do, the 7 steps of preparedness the right way. Most people don't know there's 7 steps of preparedness. They're usually focusing on 1 or 2 steps. We have 7 total, and that really helps everybody get prepared the right way. But our first thing is education,
Okay.
more than anything else. When you get people educated the right way, then all of a sudden they know what we know. And that means we have to live at a higher standard. That means everybody else has to live at a higher standard, right? So we just teach people the science between, behind water storage, behind, food storage, behind, all the different things you need to do to prepare the different types of kits that you should have. Everybody thinks the kit's the most important thing you can have. Most of the time you don't even ever leave home, right? And
Right.
people think, oh man, there's an emergency. What do you do now? And I ask people, if you had an emergency right now, crazy emergency right now, what are you going to do? I'll grab that bucket of 25-year shelf life foods and I'll open it up. And I'm like, seriously, you're going to do that? Because most people are going to go to the fridge and the freezer and the pantry first and live off of that as long as they can before they go to some meal they've never tried in their life. Right? Because they bought it because it says up to 25-year shelf life. And that up to gets a lot of companies out of the FDA because they don't last 25 years.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to eat something that's been
Me
sitting
neither.
in my storage unit for 25 years. But I'll tell you, I have, as I said, a lot of friends in this sort of preparedness world. And a friend of mine introduced me to some stuff you put on the shelf, food like what you got.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I bought maybe 10 weeks supply or something like that. And I got a gajillion kids, so 10 weeks supply is a lot.
Yeah.
And it's already all gone.
Because they ate it all.
My
or
kids freaking love it.
Oh, really?
Like they make it for lunch, and so I'm gonna have to find a way to lock it up. But
Yeah.
so our producers thought that you would be perfect for this show.
Yeah.
Our show is really all about how are entrepreneurs dominating in their space, right?
Yeah.
So you're obviously doing very well. What are some of the keys, like thinking about the business side of it, what are some of the keys that have led to your ability to dominate, right?
I would say sincerity and transparency. That's probably been two of the biggest things. So my former life, I used to be director of entrepreneur development for the state of Utah. I'm 55 years old right now. I started as an entrepreneur when I was my first official business, not my first unofficial business when I was 9 or 10 years old, but my first official business as a partner was 15 years old. So it's been 40 years of doing this, right?
Yeah.
And so going from entrepreneur development for the state of Utah to more businesses, I didn't expect to get into preparedness in all reality. Like I loved preparedness. I used to do survival classes, used to, I want to get prepared, wrote books on preparedness a long time ago, but man, I wasn't planning on doing a business in preparedness. And I had just left a $1 billion company that I was helping do sales for 50 countries, heading sales for 50 countries in that company. And I helped them grow. And then we just ended up leaving that. And I said, I think I'm just going to figure out what my next thing is. And I had some entrepreneur friends of mine that were doing very well financially. I mean, they made more in one day than most people make in a year, and passively, right? And they called me up and they just said, Marcelo, we heard you're in between things. Why don't you put together a team? You figure out whatever business you want to do, and we'll fund the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
And so that's pretty nice, right?
That's very cool.
And the funny thing is, 14 years, 15 years later, we're still best friends, and we never even had a written contract. Go figure that.
Well, those are the best kind.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see that today.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is I decided what I was going to do. I put together a team, and it was a Saturday morning, and I talked to one of my teammates, Ryan, and I just got off the phone with him, and I just said, I'm going to go to the internet, see if I can find a company we can purchase so that we can go quicker, right, in the niche that I wanted to do. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I go to the computer, and I don't know if you've ever had, crazy spiritual things that happen, right?
All the time, every day.
Didn't expect it. I'm at the internet about to search out the term that I was going to start building a business in. And as clear as day, something says do emergency food storage. I was like, wow, I didn't question it. I just went and I just searched out and I found a company on page 2, and they had amazing backlinks. And I'm like, why aren't these guys on page 1? They should be easily on page 1.
Right.
And called them up, and they're working out of a basement, You know, the guy was just good at backlinks.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'll pay for your company. He goes, it's not for sale. And I said, are you sure? And he goes, well, yeah, if you pay me this much. He gave me some big number.
Right.
I said, okay, done. He goes, what? And so we bought the company, grew it to number 3 on the internet, and just kept going from there, and, you know, serviced companies and families all over the world.
That's very
And
cool.
so that's kind of where it started. So it wasn't something I was expecting to do. It's just something that I feel like I was led to do. Fast forward to today, I don't take a paycheck. This is my personal mission.
Yeah.
Like, to help people get prepared. This is what I'm doing full time.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's my passion.
That's awesome. So the world around us,
Yeah.
in our lifetime, me and your lifetime, completely changed, right? Like when we were kids, if you wanted to talk on the phone, you had to be within about 3 feet of the wall, right?
totally.
And now we're everywhere. But it's changing again. We're going through this, I think of it as a sort of a technology evolution.
Yep.
And our audience is particularly interested in this because they're mostly aligned with this new sort of evolution. And of course, what we're talking about is blockchain and AI.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about AI. Have you done anything with AI?
You know, a tiny bit with
And
marketing.
what? So you
just
Chat
marketing
GPT, right?
ChatGPT for information, but what I've done, what's interesting is I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll put in some basic questions I know the answers to, because I had to figure out the answers, create the answers that nobody else had. ChatGPT doesn't have the answers.
Oh, of course not.
You know, it's like, I'm like going, wow, I know more than ChatGPT at this point, right?
Right.
And so that's interesting. But also, a lot of my marketers are saying, now let's use AI to be able to promote things online and everything else. And that's more than I understand, right?
Yeah.
These guys are better than me.
So I had last week we had a guest and we talked about AI, and it sort of the same line of thinking, right? Like, I'm going to use it to help me write better content or better emails, and that generative AI, these language models that can create content, I believe is going to allow entrepreneurs like us to streamline the process of developing content and all of that. But I think, and I just want to banter back and forth on this, I think the idea of generative AI is not even scratching the surface of what AI could do. And what I mean by that, and I actually was reading an article a couple of days ago where people are worried that AI is going to somehow take over the planet. Those are the preppers, but but they're worried that it's going to eliminate jobs and things like that, right? And so I don't worry about any of that. I think that the real power of AI is going to be in engineering and product design, right? And so when I looked, you shared some of your products with me earlier. Products, no matter how good you are at designing products, there's always a better way.
Absolutely.
There's always a way to either streamline the manufacturing process or find new efficiencies in the development process, the research phases. And so I would say that the real future of AI is in that part of the universe and not in the content generation. I mean, anybody can now make a song. I can produce a song with AI, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's the future of it, but it's interesting and fun. But I think that where your business is and the things that you're doing, I think there's a lot of power in. And it's interesting that you say, I know more than AI, or I know more than ChatGPT. I've said this about our current AI.
Yeah.
Our current AI only knows what the humans know.
What's on the internet?
Yeah, it's the collective knowledge. And can it scan through the collective knowledge faster than we can? Yes. But I think the real
But if
power,
the knowledge is wrong,
then it's going to be wrong.
and that's what I'm finding out.
100%. But
Yeah.
and take this for what it's worth. The knowledge isn't wrong.
Yeah.
What humans believe about something or have said about something or think of something, that you can't say that knowledge is wrong. You just have to say that knowledge exists. And here's why.
Good point.
Here's why. If we look at the world of physics leading up to about the mid 1900s, so going back to Newton and then to the mid 1900s, everything we thought about physics changed.
Yep.
Like we learned new things, right? And that's the way I think AI is going to evolve. Is
Totally.
it's gonna learn new things. The cool thing that it can do for us, I think, is find efficiencies.
Oh, absolutely.
Efficiencies of scale, efficiencies of production, all of those things. So that's interesting. So before the show, we talked a little bit about, I was saying, what do you know about blockchain? What are you doing with blockchain? And you were like, I know I lost a lot of money, which is really the crypto side,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to allow for a commercial break right now.
Yeah.
When we come back, I want to talk about the blockchain as a technology.
Okay.
And because I think there's some fascinating ways that it can be implemented into your business.
This episode is sponsored in part by Parler, the social media platform built to champion free speech. Parler, real people, unfiltered voices, true freedom. Download it today from the App Store.
That AI part is just amazing to me, because my dream is to take something like a lithium ion battery instead of a lithium ion, right? And figure out how can we create a little battery that's this big, that is a solid state battery,
Yeah.
that can do all these crazy things, and computers can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can imagine all the things that it can do to bring electricity to people, bring water to people, all the things that
That's
we're
why I
doing.
believe it's going to change everything.
Yeah.
That is why it's going to change everything. When we talk about, so I like the combination of blockchain and AI. So, and I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on my view of blockchain tech, because I think that you're missing some opportunities in your business right now by not understanding the other side of blockchain, right?
Okay.
When I say blockchain, most people think of Bitcoin and Ethereum and meme coins and, pump and dumps and all the junk. Yeah, all the junk. But blockchain, the actual underlying technology, is the easiest way to understand it for your business. The easiest way to understand it is it provides an immutable history, a history that can't be changed.
Yeah.
Right. So if you and I have a conversation and we value the conversation and we store that conversation on the blockchain, nobody can ever go back and say it didn't happen.
Huh.
Right. It's immutable and
Yeah.
unchangeable. And there's two reasons why. One, a blockchain is decentralized. It's not controlled by any one person, right? If you post something on Amazon and they decide they don't like it, they can unpost it
Yep.
because they control the data. They control the content, right? When you post that content onto a blockchain, nobody can go and change it. Because it's immutable and it's stored in multiple locations. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a lot of value in that, especially when it comes to the preparedness space.
Totally.
Right. But there's another side of it that I'm going to kind of talk to you about, and I think it'll go ding, like, okay, I get it. Right. And that is that you talked about your part of your mission is to educate people, right? Now, why would most people go through that education process with you? Why do they choose to do that?
Again, saving time, right? Saving money, getting the right information.
But before
quickly.
all of that, why would I decide I need to learn about preparedness?
There's pain.
Yeah, they're scared of something, right? And I say this all the time. When you can move from I'm scared of something to I'm empowered,
Yep.
then you literally transform your customer from a customer begging for help to a raving fan that's telling the rest of the world, look what I did, right? So and so with all of that, that there are, I think you said 7 steps to preparedness, right? What motivates me and drives me to do all 7?
That's I've been doing this long enough to tell you. The majority of the people are motivated by fear, and they like to motivate people by fear, but that's a short-term solution, right?
Yep.
I used to be in charge of the largest youth camp in the world, right? One of the guys in charge of it, 50,000 youth around the world. And what we learned is when we teach people enough, that they end up loving it enough that they do it without the fear, right? They do it because they want to do it, right? And we take a youth at the beginning of the week, and by the end of the week, they know so much about whatever we teach them that they live it for the rest of their lives, right? With the right friends and right support structure. So what motivates people is fear to get started.
Right.
Short-term solution, because I see it every single time. When the news hits, big war coming out with Russia and Ukraine or whatever it is, we see hundreds of thousands of dollars go through our store within a few days.
Yeah.
But within a week or two, the war's still not even over. Crazy, right? Within a week or two, people get used to the news, and then all of a sudden they stop preparing. And it's called the preparedness cycle. It's a thing I coined. It's the preparedness vicious cycle. News goes bad, get prepared, right? News goes good, stop preparing. News goes bad, get prepared, right? That's what happens.
So it's interesting that you say it that way, because I have, in a very different way, said that exact thing that you just said.
Yeah.
But that's just humans. That's how humans. That's how we operate. That's how we're programmed. So it's the same thing could be said of getting a college education as that, right? Mm-hmm. Most people go into college because they're worried if they don't go to college, their life is going to, they're not going to be successful.
Yep.
Now, you and I know that there are certain things that if you don't do these certain things, you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve.
Absolutely.
Now, I have said for a long, long time, most of my career coaching businesses on marketing strategy or on brand strategy, I have said, if you fail to connect with that one thought, whatever that one thought is about that thing. So we'll use preparedness. If you fail to connect with my actual authentic thought about that, then you'll never get me for life.
Yep.
You'll get me during the scare cycle, but you're not going to get me for life. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an anecdotal example of what I'm talking about. My wife does all the grocery shopping. At my house, I have food like you sell. I would have to be dead or dying to eat it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm just really picky about what I eat. But she wants to check the box for we are prepared, right? So she's not an addict. She's not what I like to call the raving fan. She's just checking the box. Mm-hmm. Now, we know, you and I, because we're both successful entrepreneurs, we know that there are certain things that our customers need to do in order to benefit the most from our products and services. Mm-hmm. And if they don't do that, they're going to go into that vicious cycle that you just talked about.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So how can we motivate them outside of fear? Mm-hmm. How can we motivate them to stay in the process of doing all the things? Mm-hmm. Most of us entrepreneurs, we do things, I like to call them hooks or gimmicks, or you're going to say, if you get to the next step, they do this on TV all the time.
Absolutely.
If you order right now, we're going to give you 2 of the things that you don't need.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Well, I have found a way with blockchain to build incentives using the reward to take the right actions. Imagine that. If you could motivate your journey by incentivizing the next step.
So a gamification type thing.
100%.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So years ago, I studied the idea of gamification for one of my clients.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was they were a gaming company.
Oh,
and they didn't understand gamification. I can tell you a couple of just enormous stories about success with gamification. In fact, in 1979, there was an airline, Texas International Airlines. This is in 1979. Texas International Airlines, which was a really goofy name for their company because I think they had a flight from Houston to Dallas and Dallas to Houston.
Oh, no kidding.
They weren't an international company. But they created the very first frequent flyer program.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all the other airlines adopted it, and it became so big and so powerful inside Delta Airlines, they actually spun it out. It's its own business, the Sky Miles program, because they learned that gamification is is the most powerful motivator. For whatever reason, humans are wired to win, right? We're wired to win. We want to win. I want to be better than you, and I want to prove it, right? Fitbit literally went from 0 to hero through gamification. So many days from now, you and I will have a conversation, but I think there's ways within your whole overall experience that you can leverage blockchain to motivate, give them the now motivation for the then motivation.
Love it.
Yeah.
So right now in our courses, we have 3 courses right now. And one of them is the price of lunch, just to get people interested, right? Because most people, you give them the meat, they can't eat it, right? You got to give them the milk first. And then it goes from that to a VIP program where I bring in different friends of mine from the show alone in different places. And then they speak with me for another 20 hours. But the big master course took over 4,000 hours to put together, right? And it, 20,000 plus hours of experience, hundreds of thousands of dollars mistakes to put what's in there to be able to help people get prepared faster and better. That thing we've been using gamification. We turned it on, not to the extent that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But we're talking about we give people points. They got to get 1,000 points. If they finish a certain amount of stuff, they get $1,000 worth of product in the mail. All this stuff. Yeah. And they have little hoorays when they get certain milestones. And I'll tell you, we're getting 97% of the people to finish the course.
Yeah.
Just with a little tiny bit of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Not even like the pro that you're talking about.
Right.
Okay. And I'm amazed. I'm like, wow. I have to use 2 different systems to do it, which kind of stinks because I have to connect them and, things break and everything else.
Right.
I wish I could have it all under one system. That would be really awesome. But I'll tell you, I've seen a huge difference just by rewarding people for finishing things, for starting. I mean, even just starting. I'd say, look, hardest part about going to the gym on January 1st is getting up out of bed. Yeah. Right? Putting your shoes on, getting in the cold, and just getting in your car. Once you're at the gym, you sit around, you start getting bored, and all of a sudden you're like, I might as well pump something, right?
Right.
But that's the hardest part. And I say, okay, the hardest part about a course is you buy all this courses, you course junkies out there that buy courses and never do anything. I will give you, if you get in the course and finish the introduction in a couple hours, I'll give you a T-shirt for free in the mail just for starting the course, because once you start it, you're able to keep going. And so I agree with you, but using blockchain, now you got me intrigued.
Yeah.
Like, well, how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, not on this show, but I can show you how to do it.
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
Well, this has been really great. I would like to give you the opportunity to tell us now. So this is where you are today, and this is what you're doing really good at. If you had the perfect world over the next few years, how are you going to continue to dominate, and how are you going to disrupt the status quo that's out there, where most of us in the end we don't care about preparedness, right? Because we don't want to live in fear. Mm-hmm. I think that's the main reason people avoid that thought process of
Absolutely.
I'm going to get ready, right? But then when something happens, you don't have toilet paper.
Absolutely.
So what are you going to do in your business over the next 5 years to take it to the next level, and what does that even look like?
Yeah. So let me back up a little tiny bit. When I'm in front of big groups, I'll sit there and ask a question. What's your favorite sport? Right? And people will say soccer, basketball, whatever it is. I'll say, what's your favorite hobby? Oh, I love knitting. I love this. I love sewing. Whatever it is, right? And then I can ask the same question back to them and just say, okay, what sport do you know the most? Oh, soccer. And they, like 90% of the time, they give me the exact same answers back. Mm-hmm. And I say, what's your favorite hobby? Sewing, knitting, whatever it is. They give that back. And I go, you know that the most and it's your favorite? There's a correlation there, right?
Right.
Okay. The more you know about something, the more you love it. So how do you get preparedness interesting enough that it's not crazy, right? It's something that people want to do to the point where they gain confidence, and then it becomes part of their identity in a good way, so they're not crazy. Like you were talking about doomsday preppers, right? I was interviewed 3 times to be part of that.
Yeah.
3 times back in the day.
Yeah.
You want to know why they didn't put me on the show? They said, you're not crazy enough.
Right.
I said, but you don't have to be crazy to be a prepper. You don't have to be crazy.
Well, and I think there's a lot to be said about why is it that we generally think that those people are crazy. It's not that they're actually crazy. It's that we don't know what they're talking about. And when we don't know what they're talking about, that means they're crazy. And it's certainly not us.
You look at the news today and you see a certain percentage of people just normally in our society, they're crazy enough that they change the whole world, right? The 1% taking over the 99% because you can't be,
Right.
you know how it goes, right? What happens in the industry is you have the 1% dictating how crazy the 99 are, and that's not true. So if I were to take a little Venn diagram, you got the circle right here, right? You got preppers on one side, you got survivalists on the next side, right? Most people have heard of preppers and survivalists. The funny thing is, I speak at prepper conferences, some of the biggest ones, survival conferences, and I ask the same question to all these preppers and survivalists. What's the difference between a prepper and a survivalist? And it's crickets. People don't know.
Right.
Once in a while, I have a hand go, well, let me give it a try. And they'll give me a definition. I've never had the same definition ever in any of the shows, right? But I created a definition. It's really easy. A prepper is somebody who focuses on supplies over skills, okay? They still do both, but focuses on supplies over skills. And survivalists focus on skills over supplies. I'm a prepper. I'm a survivalist. But the problem is most people don't want to be preppers because they don't want to be known as hoarders because that's the news, right? Don't be a hoarder, and don't be a survivalist because you're going to be an extremist. You're either going to be a militant with 1,000 bullets in your backpack and you're going to kill anyone and everyone who comes to your house, or you're going to be a minimalist where you're not going to do anything. You're going to survive off the land and kill your local pet or whatever to survive, right? And the truth is that if you do the Venn diagram and you get this little middle section right here, you never have to be an extremist on either side. You can actually, like I said, you can get better prepared with this information. The 80-20 rule, right? You're not going to learn how to do a bow drill fire and all this stuff. You're just going to figure out how to get prepared better than most people can get prepared in 10 to 15 years. Okay? You're going to do that in 90 days or less with that information without becoming crazy. Now, when you know that and you're sitting there thinking, yeah, preparedness is a good thing, right? Yeah. It's not hard to do if you know what to do. You don't waste all this money. And then you do gain confidence. You talked about your wife, right? It's interesting. I speak to men and women, and sometimes I speak to husbands and wives separately. And I'll sit there and say, how many of you in Utah have a year supply? And I see all these hands go up that I got a year supply of food. Then I go talk to their wives, and they're like, I think we got maybe a couple months. I'm like, same family. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Right? Because guys tend to over-exaggerate how prepared they are and underestimate how bad things are. Girls tend to overestimate how bad things are and underestimate how prepared they are. And so what's interesting, if you can bring that together, well, husband and wife, where the wife doesn't feel like she's scared of the husband because he's going to tell her, no, that's stupid.
Right.
But you get prepared in a very simple way. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be super expensive. If you do it the right way, you mentioned it earlier, there's a checkoff that happens where you feel peaceful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember 2020. Okay. Everybody does, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So at the beginning of 2020, I was in Las Vegas at a trade show. And I'm the type of person that doesn't get scared or anything like that. I don't care. It's like if I die, I die.
Right.
The worst thing for me is leaving my kids and my wife.
Yeah.
That's more important than my life. Does that make sense? You get it. Okay?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And so what's interesting is here I am in Vegas, and the news about the pandemic hits. And I'm watching at this big, gigantic trade show I'm at, all these people, and you see all the different personalities. People like going like this and running away, right, because they don't want to talk to anyone. I saw other people put their hands in their pocket and go, yeah, I don't care or anything like that, but you could tell they were scared.
Yeah.
And other people really didn't care. But the more I was around that energy, I started feeling it. And I'm like going, oh, man, this is scary. Like people are getting really nervous about this. And I was like, wow, what's happening here? Maybe people are going to die by the millions, and what's going to happen? And I forgot. I'm in Vegas. I forgot that I was prepared. And here I am. I'm like starting to get nervous. I get all the way back home in Utah, and I walk through my door, and I literally felt the preparedness that I had been doing for so long, for a decade or more, 15 years, whatever. I felt it as I walked in, and I felt total peace.
Right.
And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm prepared. When everybody else is running to get toilet paper, we have plenty of toilet paper, right? We have everything we need because you're going to buy it anyways. I lived in Brazil through over 30,000% inflation.
Yeah.
Okay. And you learn a few things on that. So you think, well, buy it cheap, right? And put it away because you're going to use toothpaste, all this stuff anyways, right? Toilet paper, just do it. So that experience was huge for me because that checkoff that you and your wife were talking about, right? It might not be a big deal. But when you're prepared, you shall not fear, right? Now you're not being led by fear. You're led by interest or led by contribution.
Yeah.
Contribution, wanting to help people around you. Because now you're coming from a place of empowerment, not just weakness, right?
Yeah.
Or reactivity. You're acting. You're not being acted upon, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's great. So back to what I asked before. What innovations are you dreaming up to expand your business and your growth around the world? And what are you thinking for the future?
Oh man, I can't stop thinking about that stuff. You know, the thing is, we're at the cutting edge of technology, so I know what products work and what don't work. I know how to create better water filters. I know how to create, you know, sleeping bags and things that can, like I took my daughter, okay, 6-year-old at the time, I believe, and I was going out to test out foam clothing, open cell foam clothing, because it's the best thing in the market, right, as far as keeping warm, right? And when we were out there, when I was about to go out there, I got to show you the picture sometime. My little boy just gave me this look like, how dare you leave without me? And I'm like, it's sub-freezing weather out there, guys. I'm going to go sleep without a sleeping bag. I'm going to go sleep without, you know, I'm just going to go in my clothes, no tent, nothing. I'm just going to sleep out in the freezing cold weather. And they looked at me and they said, oh, dare you to take us?
Right.
And so I was like, fine. I said, don't put on any clothes, anything different than your pajamas. You're barefoot, come out barefoot. Don't put a beanie on, nothing like that. I'm going to put you in open cell foam, the right open cell foam. I'm just going to put you inside of it. And we're just going to sleep in freezing cold weather, right? So they did, holes all over the place. And they slept, and I slept fine, right? I wake up in the morning, I wake up my little daughter, and she sticks her head out. And I go, how'd you sleep? And I said, I got a question for you. Were you cold at all last night? Here she is, no beanie, nothing. Most people, sub-freezing weather, are freezing in even the best sleeping bags out there.
Yeah.
And there's like all this room in there. It's not tight like most sleeping bags. Her little video, she's like, no, I was totally warm. And then she goes like this, except one of my feet was burning hot. And I started laughing,
Yeah.
you know, because there's so many technologies out there that we can use to be able to help people. You mentioned AI,
Yeah.
like blockchain. You got me interested, because how do you take the knowledge I have, put it in a searchable pattern where people can ask a question and they actually get the right information,
Right.
right? They understand not to use bleach like everybody else does, you know, to be able to kill microbes. They use hypochlorous acid instead, or something more effective than what we have been taught all our lives, because
Right.
they just don't even know what hypochlorous acid is or anything else.
Right.
So when you ask that question, I light up, because I have all these things I want to get to. I just don't have time enough to do it.
Right.
You know, and
Well,
businesses
that's where
to build,
AI
right?
comes in. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about efficiency and scale. Well, Marcelo, this has been absolutely fascinating. I want to have you back. I'd love to do a feature on just one of your products.
Okay.
We don't have time to do that today, but I really appreciate you coming by, and I wish you all the best. I will tell you, my wife's going to see this show. It means I'm going to have to do some things that I wasn't planning to do.
Good for you.
But I look forward to that.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
This episode was sponsored in part by the Optio community. Learn more about the Optio blockchain by visiting optio.community.